and gentlemen. Okay, sorry, Chris.
Sorry about that.
Okay, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Bloomfield Board of Education regular meeting. Today is January 11th. It is 7:01 p.m. Would you please rise for our Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands,
one
one
nation,
nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Mr. Wilkinson, would you read our opening statement?
Good evening.
Good
As
evening.
Secretary of the Board of Education, I wish to extend a warm welcome to everyone present and to our televised viewers. The board superintendent and I are pleased that you have joined us as we celebrate the achievement, review information, and make policy decisions related to the effective operation of the Bloomfield Public Schools. This is a regular meeting, and all items will be discussed or voted on this evening have been posted as required by state law. As the Bloomfield Board of Education, we're here to set goals, listen to reports of the superintendent, approve budgets, contracts, and personnel appointments, and make policy for the district. We are not here to make management decisions or solve the problems of individuals. Management is the responsibility of the superintendent. Meetings of the board are open to the public. It is the time when the board conducts its business of governing the school system in a public arena. The regular meetings are not meetings with the public. Therefore, comments from the audience will be confined to the time designated for the public to address the board. Decorum and courtesy are important elements in effective public meetings. Please silence your cell phones or communication devices and refrain from talking while others are speaking. Since it is legally mandated that the proceedings be accurately recorded, the board chair may have to ask for order periodically should noise begin to interfere with our recording capabilities. I'm pleased that you have taken the time this evening to join us. We're very pleased and proud of the school system, and thank you for your interest in Bloomfield Public Schools.
Thank you, Mr. Wilkinson. Moving on, item number 4, our consent agenda. Mr. Friedman. Mr. Friedman. He is with us, right? Howard?
Sorry, I keep going off. Are we at the agenda?
I can hear you now.
I move that the Bloomfield Board. Sorry.
Please repeat.
I move that the Bloomfield Board of Education approves the minutes from the December 15th, 2021 regular board meeting as presented.
Second.
Been properly moved and seconded with the approval of the minutes from our December 14th, 2021 meeting. Any additions, corrections?
I saw a couple corrections, Mr. Chair.
Please proceed.
I think it was page 1 and then the last page as well. It still lists Howard Friedman as the secretary. Also, Dolores Bolton's name is still on as an attendee.
Yes, in the revision I sent, it was revised in the second.
Oh, okay.
email.
Okay,
Thank
I'm
you.
sorry. I didn't see the second email.
Oh, that's the revision you sent out this morning?
Correct.
Okay. Is there another correction, Ms. Eastman?
No, sir. Thank you.
Okay, okay. Any other edits? Hearing none, seeing none. With those comments from Ms. Eastman and Mrs. Cherry, please signify by saying aye.
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 Oppose? Abstentions? Motion carries. We are pleased, I am pleased today, and we representing the board to have two students from GEMS, the Global Experience Magnet School, 11th grader Will Olniak and 11th grader Ariana Stroman, who are going to be presenting what's going on at GEMS. Please proceed.
Good evening, Board of Education and community members.
Good evening. Before we get started, we want to thank you all for the opportunity to speak on behalf of Global Experience Magnet School. We hope that you enjoy the presentation we prepared for you tonight. Next slide, please.
Good evening. My name is William Olnick. I'm from Tolland, Connecticut. I'm an 11th grader at Global Experience Magnet School. I've been at GEMS since 8th grade. I'm class representative for our school's government and president of the yearbook club. I'm an A student. This is my second time presenting in front of the school board. I'm currently working on completing ground school. Please go to the next slide.
Hello, my name is Ariana Stroman. I'm from East Hartford, Connecticut, and I am currently a 9th grader here at Global Experience Magnet School. I'm a member of NHS and I have been since 8th grade. I am an A average student. I have been at GEMS since the 6th grade. And I am also a student whom my teachers ask for help for helping other students with their assignments. This is my first time presenting in front of the board. Please move on to the next slide.
Within GEMS, being a part of clubs and activities is a way to keep communication and interaction open with the students and staff. Furthermore, in our school, there are many students that are taking part in club activities. The students and staff continue to build great relationships outside of our academic classes. Highlighted are a few of our club offerings. Next slide, please.
The Student Council held elections. Students elected representatives from grades 7 through 12. Students then began campaigning for the offices of president and vice president. After speeches were presented to the student body, students voted to elect junior Valerie Nunez Reyes for president and senior Amari Gary for vice president. Next slide, please.
On December 17th, GEMS launched the Cultural Fair website. Cultural Night is one of our favorite school events here at GEMS, and we did not want to let this year go without celebrating it. The diverse groups that make up our student body, this site allowed for students' displays and community contributions to learn more about our global community and the culture that GEMS, that makes GEMS a special place. Next slide, please.
National Honor Society students helped our school raise $400 to donate coats to children in need. To celebrate, GEMS students and staff wore our ugly sweaters. NHS continues to promote community and school spirit. Next slide, please.
GEMS Society is our school-based honor society that recognizes students who actively maintain quarterly grades of 85% and above in each class, as well as serving as a role model for peers while being an active member of the GEMS community. These students are then rewarded in many different ways listed above. The students listed here were honored during Q1 with a dress down day. Next slide, please.
The GEMS seniors class is moving quickly towards their post-graduation plans. The acceptance letters are rolling and students are weighing their options. Here are just a few of the colleges where the students have been accepted. Next slide, please. In review, the most important things we want to leave you with are that because of our size, we have a really tight knit community, and we are looking into traveling at some point in the future.
Thank you for your time tonight. And if you have any questions, we would be happy to address them now.
Thank you. Any questions from the board? Any questions from the board? Yeah, I agree with you, Tony. I wanna give a round of applause and thanks for our two student reps. Getting up here in front of the crowd, whether it's at a board meeting or if it's on Zoom, it's not an easy job. William, Ariana, you both did an outstanding job. I thank you very much.
Thank you.
And as always, I remind you, you can stay on for the entire meeting, or you can excuse yourself and get to your homework. Okay,
Got it.
got it. All right. Do we have any public or PTO comment? Public or PTO comment? Floor is open. Public or PTO comment? Last time, public or PTO comment? Hearing none, we're moving on to the superintendent's report. Dr. Thompson, superintendent update.
Thank you. Good evening, members of the board, families, colleagues, and our viewing audience joining us virtually. Health and safety. Health officials continue to report on increasing COVID-19 infection rates across the country, including Connecticut. We continue to monitor staff and student attendance as this surge impacts our school community, especially staffing. John Robinson, Director of Technology, Human Resources Coordinator, will provide a more detailed report on the staffing effects from COVID-19. Governor Lamont reiterated Tuesday, January 4th, that a return to statewide remote learning is not an option at this time. The governor, along with the education and public health commissioners, restated that in-person learning is the most productive educational model for children. Effective today, or effective yesterday, the district has moved forward with implementing recommendations for reduced quarantine time from 10 days to 5 days. In addition, the district will no longer be quarantining for in-school close contacts. These decisions were made in collaboration with the West Hartford Bloomfield Health District and from recommendations from the Center for Disease Control and Prevention and Connecticut Department of Public Health. Wendy Shepherd-Banish, our COVID-19 liaison, will provide further detail on data trends and updates to our health and safety protocols. Student academic performance update. This year, our district transitioned to utilizing the iReady benchmark assessment for grades K through 12. Over the past several weeks, building leaders alongside central office administrators have analyzed the student progress during monthly meetings with district and instructional data teams. Tonight, our school leaders will share school-based information as well as identify areas for instructional focus relative to teaching and learning. And finally, I wish all of our staff and families a healthy, safe, and healthy new year. This concludes my report.
Thank you, Dr. Thompson. Any questions for Dr. Thompson? Okay. They're gonna save the questions for Wendy when her time comes to report. Thank you. Financial report, Mr. Guzman.
Thank you, Mr. Harris. Good evening, members of the Board of Education. This report for tonight is as of January 6, 2022, and represents the first half of the 21-22 fiscal year. At this time, approximately $875,800, or 1.87% of the adopted budget, has yet to be expended or encumbered. On the summary page in front of you, you will note that two major accounts have deficits at this time. Account 01, certified salaries, has a deficit of approximately $98,000. This will be addressed when we post receivables for expected tuition revenues. And account 08, tuition, has a deficit of $609,880. I would like to focus on this account this evening. With respect to this account, please note that there have been 63 new students to Bloomfield who already arrived with special education services as part of their IEP. This has impacted the budget in many ways, in particular the out-of-district tuitions. Please turn to page 4 of the detailed report. About halfway down the page, there are 3 sub-accounts for the major account 08 tuition. Sub-account 5600 tuition public and sub-account 5630 tuition private represent the tuition accounts for students who attend out-of-district schools for their special education services. We originally budgeted for 25 students in public and private special education placements for the 21-22 fiscal year. We currently have 37 students receiving out-of-district special ed services. Therefore, there are an additional 12 students that were not budgeted, resulting in deficits in these 2 sub-accounts of $234,300 and $214,490 respectively. These accounts also include expenditures to cover special education costs for students attending magnet schools. Again, we budgeted 77 students who for special education services going to magnet schools for this fiscal year. We currently have 93 magnet school students, resulting in additional 16 students that require these special education services. Sub-account 5690 tuition magnet. This account is for the tuition payments for all students attending magnet schools. As shown on that account line, we are over budget by $161,085 because of an increase of 35 students attending magnet schools above the number we calculated for the 21-22 fiscal year. That's by way of explaining the deficit in major account 08 of $609,880 at this particular point. As I've mentioned several times, and as many of the veteran board members know, this account is one that we monitor closely throughout the year because of the volatility of the account. As mentioned earlier, we've had students move into town that came with IEPs that required special education services, and in some cases, those services were to be provided by outside facilities and schools. This ends my report, Mr. Harris. Thank you.
Okay. Any questions for Mr. Guzman? Any questions? Yes, Ms. Eastman.
So I'm just wondering, because we do have several of the accounts that are in the red. Just wondering, are we expecting to be able to bring all of those back into the black with just getting the tuition receivables in?
Tuition receivable is one thing. Other ways of balancing some of those deficit accounts is by at year end, monitoring the progress throughout the year, but at year end, there will be accounts that have surpluses in them and transferring some of those monies into those deficit accounts to address that issue.
Okay. Also, I feel, if we go back a little bit, maybe, 1 or 2 years, the account with the teachers' salaries is perpetually in the red. And I'm wondering, are we just like, how are we reconciling that it's, we're always having to pull money from somewhere else?
Well,
to
and
cover
that,
the-
yes, yeah, good point. It's the years vary from one to another. In terms of that account, bringing in, we budget, as you know, we budget on an estimated basis 1.5 years before the actual school year begins. And once the year begins, we'll find that there are retirees that we didn't account for. There are resignations that we didn't account for. And so when we place when we post for those positions, some of those positions of new teachers coming into the district come in with higher salary requirements because of their experience and their years of teaching in probably some other school district. So that's always going to be an area that that's going to be some flux because of the movement of teachers in and out of the district. This year, in the past months, when we've reported on that particular account, the deficit was going to be covered. And I think what we do is, as you may know, is that we anticipate certain revenues coming into the district. So when we budget net of those numbers so that when the numbers come in, we have a realistic budget line item. We don't budget gross because we know that we're going to have revenues from particular sources. And so that's some of the flux, if you will, the ins and outs of managing the budget throughout the year. Not only in that account, but in all the accounts, because of budgeting is not an exact science. And so there are a lot of estimation that goes on. And so we're constantly looking at all the accounts that are in the report to see where we are at any particular time. And salaries for teachers is a big account. It's one of the biggest accounts that we have. And as well as for non-certified salaries and benefits. Those are the 3 major accounts. So that's just part of the process of managing the budget throughout the year.
Right. No, I get that. I was just wondering if there was a way to, make those numbers a little bit more realistic if we're always finding ourselves in the same position.
Yeah.
Year after year.
Yeah. Again, when we're budgeting, we estimate at the very beginning that we're going to have a certain number of retirees. And I think in the past, we've always put in the budget 7 retirees leaving the school district. And so there's an estimation right there, 7. And if it turns out to be 10, well, we've underestimated by 3, and we have to make those adjustments accordingly. Same thing for not only retirements, but resignations. This year, I think more than most years, if my memory serves me, we probably had more resignations this year because of the pandemic. So again, when we put the budget together, we're estimating, we're doing our best estimates in terms of these various accounts.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Are there other questions? Any other questions? Okay, thank you, Mr. Guzman.
Welcome.
Health and safety update. It's Wendy Shepherd Banish and Mr. Robinson, I guess.
I've got a presentation from Wendy. I'm just going to share this.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman Harris. Yes, we are struggling with our own little pandemic crisis over here tonight. So I've pre-recorded for you and then happy to answer any questions. And John's going to just pull that up for us.
I'm Wendy Shepherd Banish, your Director of Student Support Services for Bloomfield and your COVID-19 liaison. This afternoon, I want to just share with you some COVID-19 health and safety updates. It is January 11th, and I would like to start right now with some state and community positivity data. Across the state of Connecticut, of course, we've never seen this map look quite so red. As of January 10th, we are at 23.68%. In the town of Bloomfield, as of January 1st, we were at 23.2%. For comparison purposes, if we go back 1 year to date, last year at January 5th, we were at 2.95%. So drastic increase in cases. We wanted to show you some of the obstacles that the schools have been dealing with right now. So we're just taking a few weeks of data to take a look at from December 21st to January 10th. We have reported to us 58 cases of staff who are positive and 217 students. Again, for comparison purposes, in all of last year, we were just short of 150 cases for the 2021 school year that we reported. This is 275 cases in just those short weeks. And so far to date this year within Bloomfield, we've had reports of 412 positive cases within our school community. We are trying to efficiently keep track of data as best we can so we can get back to families as efficiently as possible, give them correct guidance. We are moving forward by centralizing our data reporting and asking all staff and students to please report to the Bloomfield COVID-19 reporting form link. And all of this data can be reviewed as well as school data on positive cases at our Bloomfield COVID Information Center, which is located underneath Dr. Thompson's daily update on the home page. If you click on health and safety links, you'll be able to find the COVID data center there. In terms of taking a look at vaccination data across the district and across the state, it's another data set that we monitor very closely. All of this information comes directly from the West Hartford Bloomfield Health District data page. Across Connecticut, we can see for our students ages 5 to 11, the state average is at 22.1%. Ages 5 to 11 here in Bloomfield are at 13.8%. Ages 12 to 15 across the state are at 67.2%. Here in Bloomfield, about 10 points behind, 10 percentage points behind at 57.2%. A little closer with our older children or our older young adults, 16 to 24, 67.3%. And for fully vaccinated here in Bloomfield, we are at 63.8%. We are trying very diligently to pick up our vaccination rates here in Bloomfield. We have sponsored 5 to 11 age clinics all through December, and we are moving into January now. Our upcoming clinics are on this Wednesday, the 12th, from 2 to 5 at A-Race, and January 6th from 2 to 5 at A-Race. And we will continue to book clinics so long as we have children that are coming through our clinics with first doses. Moving right along, the state promised last week prior to coming back to school after the holiday that they were going to be distributing for safe return upon such times where we have such a high incident rate of spread an infection, that they were going to supply schools with and communities with N95 masks. We got our masks last week. And January 5th, we were able to distribute all of those masks to our buildings and supply each of our school staff 2 masks per staff for now. And if they need more, should their masks become dirty or damaged, they can become available upon request. There is a limited supply, so we are starting with the amounts that we have right now, and then we will continue to inquire to see if we will get more. In terms of our students, because they are adult size masks, we know that the mask would not be effective for younger students if they are not fitting properly, but we are inquiring with our older students that might be able to wear an adult mask if they would like an N95 mask, or families would like their child to wear an N95 mask. Those can be supplied upon request. Bloomfield is very comfortable and has been very fortunate to have very good mitigation strategies in place in terms of our testing. We have partnered with Sema4 since the beginning of this year to be able to offer PCR testing in every one of our buildings to staff and to students. Sema4 is going to be with us until January 31st, and then they are ending their state contract. But our staff has taken an opportunity all of this month, and our students have taken an opportunity all of this month to use that PCR testing. And we have caught a number of asymptomatic individuals, and we're able to be able to give them guidance and keep them home before making others sick. On December 30th, we offered our staff the opportunity to make sure that they were healthy to come back to school and come in and get tested. Many took advantage of that, and we are currently looking for a replacement provider after January 31st with both the state and our local health district for support. The state also delivered our self-home tests last week. They did come in a very limited supply, and they did come with very specific recommendations from the state for how we could best distribute those masks and how we should prioritize and focus on them. So the nurses are responsible for distribution of the at-home tests right now. They are prioritizing that distribution on staff and students who are currently symptomatic and are really in need of a test and not able to either get a PCR or their hands on a home test. So we will continue with those measures. As every school district in the state, we are doing our best to keep students in school to the greatest extent possible. We know that that is the best place for them to be. Right before the holidays, the CDC updated their guidance on quarantine. And it did come with some consternation and a little bit of confusion, as it seemed to be in opposition to prior guidance. As of December 31st, the state and the Department of Public Health was able to give further guidance on those CDC updates, and they sent a memo out to districts that would allow school districts the choice to make changes in their operating rules regarding quarantine and isolation and school contact tracing. We needed time with our medical team, our district medical advisor, our West Hartford Bloomfield Health District, our nurses, to be able to unpack those guidelines and make sure that we were implementing those protocols properly. We also have continued questions. The state has promised to offer out a fact document for some of those continued questions to all districts. But as of January 10th, we are moving forward with those quarantine protocols, and we will be reducing our 10-day quarantine to a 5-day quarantine following the specific conditions and guidance that have been laid out by the state. Because we are mindful of our community spread right now being in such high range and our vaccination rates, we are monitoring our data across our schools very carefully on a daily basis. And if we find that the case data shows that it is in the safest interest of the community to prevent further spread, we will revert to 10-day quarantine when that is needed. But we are hopeful that these 5-day quarantines will be helpful for keeping students in school. On December 31st, the state gave further guidance around schools and their contact tracing measures. They gave additional recommendations to discontinue routine contact tracing in the event of school exposures, and recommended that districts no longer quarantine individuals for a school-related exposure. Instead, since the infection rate is so high, the recommendations from the state and the Department of Public Health were to refocus your medical team's efforts on monitoring positive cases and symptomatic individuals in order to keep spread out of the schools. So we are doing that. We are continuing to monitor symptomatic individuals even after a school exposure. We are continuing to notify families in the event of a school exposure, and we will continue to work in collaboration with the West Hartford Bloomfield Health District and our district medical advisor on any and all cases in which there is question. We do report to them on all cases. And again, in the event that the health data in a particular case indicates that it's in the safest interest of the community to prevent further spread, we may revert to a 10-day quarantine. In cases where there are several positive cases, 2, 3, 4 in a classroom, we are starting with a 5-day quarantine to mitigate that spread throughout the school, and hopeful that those children can return if they are asymptomatic after a 5-day quarantine. That concludes my report for today. I want to thank all of the Bloomfield community for your extraordinary efforts with helping us remain safe within our schools while also providing our children an in-person learning. We do want to keep our kids in schools. It is best. And certainly the efforts of all our staff, our students, our parents, our flexibility with the protocols and being patient to understand them and move in the safest way forward is all certainly heroic efforts on the part of all of us. Thank you, Bloomfield. Good night.
Thank you, Wendy. Questions for Wendy?
Mr. Chair,
Yes, go ahead, Howard.
Wendy, excellent presentation. Thank you very much. And I hope you're feeling much better soon. Just a comment regarding masks.
Can you speak up a little bit, Howard?
Sure. I noticed that you mentioned that there's masks available for some of our older students. Do you also have some of the smaller size masks for those young people that might need an upgraded K95 mask at the various other schools?
So we were not, the only thing that the state provided us were adult size N95 masks. The state's intention was to make those available for staff. We are finding that with the amount that we have, we think that we can comfortably make them available for staff, but then also even extend those mitigation efforts to some of our older students where the mask will fit properly. We do not have an allotment from the state that's going to effectively fit the younger students right now.
Are there any grants available to actually accomplish that? For purchasing, youth size masks?
So certainly there were grant funds, but of course those were given to us early on, and I would have to work with the cabinet to see if there would be any funds available to be able to do that.
Thank you.
Mr. Ike, you have a hand raised.
Yes, I have a question. Every day we're getting these notifications of COVID, and it seems to be very extensive throughout the district. What's happening with staffing? How are we handling the staffing issues? Thank you.
Mr. Ike, that is going to be addressed by Mr. Robinson.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Sure.
Are there any other questions for Ms. Shepherd Banish? Okay, thank you, Wendy. Mr. Robinson.
Good evening. As Wendy's report illustrates, the tremendous challenge of staffing our schools. In the past month, we've had almost double the number of positive COVID cases as in all of last year. With the priority of keeping schools open safely, addressing staff vacancies is an ongoing daily activity for administrators. The pandemic has prompted what economists refer to as the Great Resignation, or some people say the Big Quit, during which workers are rethinking their careers, working conditions, and long-term goals. The situation impacts the schools and is exacerbated by the teacher shortage, which has been well documented nationally. This has been a difficult year from a staffing perspective. The latest variant has made it somewhat worse. And to illustrate that, we have approximately 10 more vacancies throughout the district per day than we had in the fall. And in the fall, our rates were fairly high relative to a normal year, but not extraordinarily high. I mean, we have outages all the time, but certainly this Omicron has made it quite a bit higher. Additionally, school administrators, who you're going to be hearing from shortly, are juggling classroom coverage as staff test positive or they quarantine, often with little or no advance notice. Teachers and support staff are doing an exceptional job taking on additional classes and supporting their students through these difficult times. Their flexibility is commendable, and we would not be able to be as agile in addressing the situation without them. Our staffing partners are facing the same staffing shortages and have been improving on their filling vacancies in the last month. And I know we've come to the board several times since the start of the school year, and that's a question that comes up: is what is Kelly Services doing, Delta T, and I think we've seen some improvement, but it's been tough for them as well. Very often administrators are having to use staff and sometimes even themselves to fill classroom vacancies. This impacts our students by temporarily reducing the level of supports they can receive. The testing and safety provisions described by Mrs. Banish were noted by Kelly Services as key factors in our filling our substitute vacancies. Our strategy of using dedicated building substitutes early in the pandemic has also helped with the staffing shortages. When given options for substitute staff to choose between working in surrounding districts, we believe that safety is a primary concern that leads them to choose Bloomfield. Long-term, CDC and state health officials expect that by the end of January, we'll look a lot better than the beginning of January. But until we get there, our focuses are the safety of staff and students, ensuring learning opportunities for students who are home quarantining, and supporting our staff who are on the front line in our schools. Thank you. And I'm sorry,
Questions
I
for
didn't have my
Mr.
video on.
Robinson? Huh?
I said, I'm sorry, I didn't have my video on.
Questions for Mr. Robinson? Mr. Ike, did your question
He
get
answered my
answered?
question. Yeah, he answered my question. Thank you.
Okay, all right. Any other questions for Mr. Robinson? Any final questions for Mr. Robinson or Ms. Wendy Banish? Wendy Shepherd Banish, I'm sorry. Okay. Item 8, new business. Student academic performance update. Dr. Thompson?
Yeah, we have a PowerPoint, and my colleague, Anne-Marie Collier, will begin presenting the PowerPoint.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Thompson. Good evening, Dr. Thompson, Chairman Harris, Board of Education members, and our listening audience. Tonight, our school leaders will update the board on student academic performance. They will begin by reviewing current student performance while highlighting strengths and describing future instructional focus areas. Next slide, please. The payoff that we expect is that our Board of Ed, our school, and our town community will be more knowledgeable about the students, about the standards, what instruction we are targeting, and how our portrait of a graduate fits into our students' everyday life in our schools. We will talk about how the competencies are embedded in our schools. On our next slide, I would like to point out that, again, this is a district snapshot of data from our October 1st count. And this particular data was gone over with Mr. Titlebaum in detail at our last Board of Ed meeting. We could go to the next slide. And the next one. And now I would like to introduce Mrs. Straker, principal of Wintonberry, to start us off. And I ask each principal to introduce their colleague who will be coming up after them. Thank you, Mrs. Straker.
Thank you. Good evening, Board of Education members, colleagues, and the viewing community. I would like to begin by sharing some strength areas of Wittenberry Early Childhood Magnet School. One of our strength areas for English language arts is our objective 17A, uses and appreciate books. What this looks like for our 3-year-olds is them beginning to hold a book correctly, turn pages, they're looking at front to back, they're recognizing their favorite books by the front cover. Sometimes they even recognize author and author's names by the end of their 3-year-old year. Our 4-year-olds, they don't just begin to do this, but they really start ingraining this as a reading habit. And they really build that motivation for reading. So this is an area of strength of ours because we put books into kids' hands from day one, and we reinforce this every single day through read alouds to the whole classroom, and also children independently reading in a book club format. This is really foundational because this is really where we're building the motivation to become readers as they move up in their schooling career. Another strength of ours at Wittenberry under mathematics is our objective 22B, which is measures time and money. And what this is at the preschool level is our 3-year-olds beginning to know the usual sequence of basic daily events, and our 4-year-olds knowing that usual sequence of basic daily events. So this is something we really focus on all year long, but really, really intentionally and specifically in that first 8 weeks or so of school, because it helps children, number one, build self-regulation, which contributes to academic learning in the year and as they go along in their school career, but it also is really foundational for several mathematical concepts. I also want to address our objective 14A, think symbolically. This is really not necessarily belonging under mathematics, but it's associated to mathematics and English language arts and the portrait of the graduate when we think about becoming problem solvers. So this is really what we do here at Wittenberry, and it's our approach to learning through play. And this happens all day long in school, in our preschool, but especially through play when children are engaged with open-ended materials and they're really being able to represent their ideas. So this is this foundation of abstract thinking. In the future, this translates into students understanding a letter. When you put letters together, it's a word, or something abstract mathematically, like a group of 5 tally marks is representing the number 5. Next slide, please. Thank you. Some instructional areas that we are focusing on right now are through English language arts, our objective 17B, which is concepts of print. So now that we have this motivation and foundation and love of books, we're really looking at the idea that our 3-year-olds are learning that text is meaningful, and then our 4-year-olds layering more features of print. We're looking at 19A, writing your name. This is an important objective to look at because you're also tying into letter naming, you're tying into sounds, and you're looking at handwriting. And you can see just one of the ways that we practice name writing in a playful manner in the top picture. Our pre-K 3-year-olds learn to make controlled linear marks, and then they build into their 4-year-old year and they develop strings of letters in letter-like forms. Our objective, excuse me, 2C is interacts with peers. So again, not necessarily directly in English language arts objective, but very closely tied to it. This is a foundation for cooperative learning. There's an additional focus on oral language, and it really supports communication, which ties nicely into the work of the Portrait of the Graduate that we're focusing on. Under this objective, our preschoolers are learning strategies to enter groups at a 3-year-old level. And then at our 4-year-old level, they're really working on sustaining those interactions. Next slide, please. And in terms of mathematics, our instructional areas are Objective 20C, which is connecting numerals with their quantities. As a 3-year-old, students are learning to recognize numerals. And then as a 4-year-old, they're not only recognizing the numerals, but they're building the ability to count out a group and then give the number or the numeral that matches that group. Our 4-year-olds really learn to start persevering through counting and counting higher numbers. And then they're retaining that information to provide the correct numeral. 21B is understanding shapes. And in preschool, our 3-year-olds are beginning to identify the basic shapes. And then the expansion for our 4-year-olds is really a focus on communication and looking at attributes where they're not only naming the shape, but they're describing the shape in their own words. And this is a nice foundation for students when they get into kindergarten to then take it to the next level and use mathematical language to describe shapes. 21A, understand spatial relationships. This focus really is on our 3-year-olds learning to follow directions, and then our 4-year-olds being able to actually use those spatial words on their own to give direction or to communicate. And you can see a creative way through play that we work on this. In the picture in the bottom, the boy is engaging in an obstacle course in our multi-purpose room where he is following the direction to go under these hoops. And then in the next activity, they might walk on a balance beam and have a few other multisensory objects to engage in the obstacle course. And that is the conclusion for the academic update for Wittenberry Early Childhood Magnet School. I thank you for listening. And at this time, I want to introduce Ms. Jen Dwyer, principal of Laurel Elementary School.
Thank you, Principal Straker. Good evening, board members, colleagues, and Bloomfield community. This year, Bloomfield Public Schools introduced 2 new academic programs for K-5 students, Bridges for Math and Open Courts for English Language Arts. Excuse me. Our students are showing promise in both of these new programs. In ELA, one of our strength areas is word recognition. Our students have demonstrated a strong ability to recognize sight or high frequency words. So these words often don't follow spelling rules such as THE says the and not THE. The concept can be difficult for young readers, but our students are showing a lot of strength and promise in this area. In math, students are demonstrating capacity in the area of geometry. They're engaging in academic discussions about attributes and properties of 2- and 3-dimensional shapes. The image that you see there is a calendar from the Bridges program. Students participate in daily math conversations that are called Number Corner. You can see from the picture, it's kind of small, that the pictures are all different shapes and they follow a pattern. Each student has to predict patterns by articulating the attributes that they see and rationalizing why their prediction makes sense for the next logical piece of the puzzle. The Number Corner has been a fantastic addition to our curriculum. It gives students the opportunity to be analytical and to be problem solvers, which are 2 of the Portrait of a Graduate competencies that we're practicing. Next slide, please. Excuse me. We continue to focus on foundational instructional areas. In ELA, we've expanded our instruction to be more aligned with the science of reading. We know from research that students need to identify patterns in words in order to accurately decode. Each grade level builds on the complexity of those patterns so that we can produce strong readers going into 3rd grade. Before I explain the standard, I want to provide a brief connection to the Early Childhood Initiative that we presented in November. One of the main objectives that we had discussed was to provide preschool students with similar learning experiences. Taking this idea of the understanding of science as the science of reading to the preschool level will give our incoming kindergarten students a strong basis for reading fundamentals. Then when they enter kindergarten, Open Court supports the science of reading and students learn word analysis skills that increases their fluency and supports their comprehension. The image that you see there is part of a decoding routine called sound by sound blending. The teacher focuses on each letter of the word and has the student identify the sound that that letter makes. They blend each sound together and they put it together until a word is built and the student is able to read the word. Teachers are excited about the progress students are showing using these routines. In math, we're using active learning tasks where students understand and apply the concepts of addition and subtraction with fluency. Students participate in math games that develop collaboration and communication skills while solving problems, thus supporting the Portrait of a Graduate skills again. Our STEAM enrichment program supports this learning as students engage in academic homework help, then engage in enrichment from our partners with Our Farms, Extension, and Creative Vista. Laurel has a slightly different assessment calendar as the rest of the district, so we're currently in our middle of the year assessment window. I'm really looking forward to the progress that I anticipate our students to show based on the preliminary data that we have. We're excited for all the students are doing this year. That concludes the update for Laurel, and I'd like to introduce Mr. Paul Guzzo, Principal of Metacomet.
Thank you, Principal Dwyer. Good evening, Board of Ed members, colleagues, and viewing audience. I'm here to share the areas that are showing strength here at Metacomet. When we speak about our strength areas, I would first like to credit Laurel School, Principal Dwyer, the teachers and staff there. We're seeing many of our students coming to us with strong phonics skills, which helps prepare them to be good readers. So great job over at Laurel, thank you. We are seeing growth of our students in both literacy and numeracy. Our new programs, Open Court in literacy and Bridges in numeracy, have helped us align grade levels, kindergarten through grade 5. When we look at our data in literacy at Metacomet, we can see that most of our students are able to read stories, fables, folktales, and myths and identify the central message, the moral, and the theme of the story. And in numeracy, the data shows that our students are able to fluently multiply and divide within 100 and understand the relationship between multiplication and division. They know that 8 times 5 equals 40. They will know that 40 divided by 5 will equal 8. As part of our Portrait of a Graduate work, we are beginning to identify students who need enrichment activities and have a teacher hired to facilitate these groups. Next slide, please. Instructional areas we're concentrating on. In literacy, we're helping our students compare and contrast the characters, setting, and plot and themes of 2 different stories by the same author, the same book series, and the same topic. Students use diagrams and organizers to help them write down what is similar between the 2 stories and what is different. In numeracy, we are showing students how to compare fractions using pictures such as bar graphs and pie charts. Students learn to recognize that 1/2 is equal to 2/4 and so on, as you see in the picture over here on your right. That concludes my portion of this presentation, and I'd like to introduce Principal Williams.
Hello, Board of Education leaders, Superintendent Thompson, Mayor Wong, colleagues, and our viewing audience. I'm excited to be here with you all tonight and showcase some of the great work our staff and students are doing at Carmen Aires Intermediate School so far this school year. The information you see comes directly from our district-wide benchmark and instructional program, iReady. Students take the iReady diagnostic 3 times a year, fall, winter, and spring, to determine academic growth in reading and math. The students are assessed through a computer adaptive approach where they start on grade level standards and begin to deviate based on their responses. The resulting data informs teachers on where to support each child. As you can see from the latest iReady diagnostic assessment, our students are showing great strengths in the following standards in reading, which fall under the domain of understanding key ideas and details of literary text. Students will continue to strengthen their understanding of this domain and these standards by spiraling back to them in upcoming language arts units. The goal is to maintain grade level mastery and move up the chain to the next level. Our students are tech-savvy critical thinkers who work on their skills daily utilizing our Chromebooks. They've learned to edit, peer edit, revise, and be responsible while sharing their technological talents with their teachers and classmates. Google has truly become a second language. The mathematical standards listed fall under the domains of numbers and operations in base 10 and the number system. The two standards showcase show that our students are doing very well following the process of the standards algorithm. A majority of our students have shown incredible growth in both academic areas from the fall assessment to the winter assessment, showing more than 1 year's growth and actually meeting their yearly growth targets already. Can you go to the next slide? Breaking down and comprehending informational text is a bit of a challenge in comparison to literary text. Areas of focus for our school fall under the domains of integration of knowledge and ideas. These higher level, higher order concepts will be a focus of our learners in the upcoming months as we revisit the standards in our cross-curricular units in science and social studies. In addition to the domains of number systems and numbers and operations base 10 being one of our actual best group of standards, it is also one of struggle for students when it comes to the higher standards in that domain. You'll see more complex terminology in front of you right now and concepts showcased on that slide, the dividing fractions by fractions with story problems. In addition to our curricular program of Open Court, Bridges, Maneuvering the Middle for 6th grade, and the Teachers College Units of Study in 6th grade, each individual student will also receive additional support via the iReady personalized instruction in both reading and math. Based on the student's diagnostic report, each student receives a prescription of lessons and quizzes in their area of need. We as a school are going to calculate, tally, graph the student usage, lessons passed, and lessons completed to offer some incentives and motivation to push them forward. CASE students are growing leaps and bounds through the regular school programs, but have additional opportunities to excel in our after-school extended journeys program, which we partner with Our Farm, Talcott Mountain Science Center, and Northeast Team Building. Students have opportunities to learn and grow in their ability to collaborate, problem solve, and be adaptable in new situations. We are also elated to include the Talented and Gifted program into our school. As we know from Joseph Renzulli, it isn't only about the academic ability, it also is about creativity and task commitment. And exploring these talents will further move our children toward the Portrait of Graduate goals that we have. I'm pleased to pass my presentation right on over to Dr. Trevor Ellis from Carmen Aries Middle School. You're on mute, Dr. Ellis.
Trevor, you're on mute.
Thank you.
There you go.
Good evening, Superintendent, Board of Education members, and our viewing audience. The CAM strength areas in language arts include using roots and affixes to determine the meaning of words. This helps students to define and comprehend words in context. And providing an objective summary of the text. This helps students determine central ideas and consolidate important details. The CAM strength areas in mathematics include computing unit rates associated with ratios of fractions. An example of this is gas is being sold at $4 per gallon. How much would it cost to fill a 28-gallon tank? An extension of this learning is graphing proportional relationships, interpreting the unit rate as the slope of the graph. Students will have to write an equation for the proportional relationship. An example of that would be C equals 4G. Then they will have to use the equation to calculate the cost of different numbers of gallons, and then plot and or graph the data and determine the solution. How many gallons of gas were purchased if the cost was $28? Next slide, please. The CAM's instructional areas of focus in language arts include determining the meaning of words and phrases in a text, including figurative, connotative, and technical meanings. This helps students define unknown and multiple meaning words and phrases. Another area is interpreting figures of speech in context. This helps students clarify language and enhance understanding. The CAM's instructional areas of focus in mathematics include solving equations using distributive property involving rational numbers, and solving word problems using multiple step equations. An example of these two areas are you and 4 friends go to the movies and each of you purchase popcorn and soda. The sodas cost $2 each, and one of your friends purchased a candy bar for $1. The total cost of the items was $41. What is the price of a bag of popcorn? Write and solve the equation for this situation. The answer to that question is $6 for a bag of popcorn. Pretty pricey, I think. I'm also happy to report that we have embedded the Portrait of a Graduate initiative into our daily practices here at Carmen Aries Middle School. we are teaching critical thinking and problem solving through our curriculum in areas such as language arts and math. Students are required to learn SEL vocabulary each month and solve real-world math problems similar to the items referenced in this presentation. Teachers are using our new iReady and Maneuvering the Middle math program to support our instructional efforts. We're also teaching civic responsibility through our SEL activities, student council, and a renewed focus on our talented and gifted programming. As a result, CAM students have become more self-aware and more cognizant of their impact on others in their community. Most recently, a group of 7th grade students requested a meeting with me to discuss how we could better address student discipline and behavior in an effort to improve school climate. I'm truly happy with the direction we are moving as a CAMS family. And at this time, I would like to introduce Mr. Jeff Bernabe, Principal of Global Experience Magnet.
Thank you, Dr. Ellis. Good evening to the board members, Superintendent Dr. Thompson, and to our viewing audience. There are a number of strength areas for the Global Experience Magnet School. For English language arts, our students are strong at citing textual evidence, and this is both explicitly and inferentially. And the important thing about inferentially is that they need to show an actual strong understanding of the meaning of all the text, and that includes the subtext as well. GEM students are also proficient at determining the theme or central idea, analyze its development, and then provide an objective summary. What I think I'm most proud of academically from GEMS teachers and students is their ability to determine the meaning of words and phrases, and also analyze the impact of the word choice. This is work that was an identified weakness with iReady that Principal Williams has described pretty detailed for you tonight. And this is also the literacy work that we started with Dr. Bailey and are continuing now after our cycle 2 assessments. In math, GEMS students have shown strength in understanding and solving equations and inequalities as a process of answering a question. This ties in well with our portrait of a graduate work in that all math teachers are giving particular focus to the idea of problem solving. This is very evident as all GEMS math teachers are using word problems to show the applicability of their work and the students' work. GEMS students are skilled at performing math operations with decimals, understanding place values, as well as explaining the reasoning in these operations. Additional numeracy work by GEM students involves geometry and graphing, as well as understanding the context of a problem as students determine the appropriate level of accuracy for a solution. Next slide, please. Regarding current instructional areas at GEMS for ELA, our students will be working at analyzing aspects of a text and how it fits into the overall structure of the text, and that's at our lower middle school level. Grade 8 students will be analyzing informational text in order to create objective summaries. And finally, our grade 9 and 12 students will be analyzing 2 different artistic media of the same basic topic, including what is emphasized in each. For math at GEMS, our students will start to focus on geometry as they build their ability for spatial reasoning, and also use more complex equations such as quadratics, which can be used to describe and predict projectile motion. That concludes my presentation, and it's my pleasure to introduce the principal of Bloomfield High School, Mr. Dan Maletti.
Thank you, Mr. Bernabe. Good evening, Dr. Thompson, Mr. Harris, board members, and viewing audience. I will this evening present to you the Bloomfield High School strength areas and instructional focuses at mid-year. Within the ELA, within the reading and literature portion, our students have been able to cite strong and thorough textual evidence to support the analysis of what the text is saying explicitly, as well as the inferences drawn from the text, including determining where the text leaves matters uncertain. They're able to pull out the key ideas and details, like putting together a puzzle in a mystery novel, or when they're comparing or contrasting 2 pieces of literature. In mathematics, specifically within the problem solving and data analysis domain, our students have been able to create equations and inequalities in one variable and use them to solve problems, as is displayed by the equation to the right. They're also able to display numerical data in a number line, including dot plots, histograms, and box plots, as displayed in the diagram below. Next slide, please. For instructional areas, we're supporting our students in English language arts within determining the meaning of words and phrases, in informational texts, including figurative, connotative, and technical meanings, analyzing how the author uses and refines the meaning of a key term or terms over the course of a text. As stated earlier, this is an informational text that we see. One example is be able to have students be able to determine how immigration can shape a neighborhood's identity based on the text. Within this, they're also able to draw evidence from informational texts to support analysis, reflection, and research. This is focused around reading in history or social studies, science, and the technical subjects. Example of this is students reading a lab report and drawing conclusions from the report itself. Within math, our focus has been on understanding that a function from one set, which we call the domain, to another, which we call the range, assigns to each element of the domain exactly one element of the range, as is displayed to the right. And then finally, our focus is interpreting the parameters of a linear and exponential function in terms of its concept. And basically, students are determining values and solutions of a function by solving for x and then eventually graphing. All this, what we're doing is in support of putting together initiatives for our graduates to become prepared when they leave and concentrating on the skills that are strengthened across all content areas. Not only just academics, but our course alignment is aligned with career and colleges in mind through job training, internships, job shadowing, vocational, agriculture, standards-based curriculum that is relevant and racially equitable, and community-based partners. We're developing a school to career specialist, in the district. This position will be used to guide all these initiatives in the hopes of further preparing our students for post-secondary and being successful out in society. I'd like to thank you for the time this evening, and I turn it over back to Ms. Anne Marie Cullinan.
Thank you, Mr. Maletti. I want to thank all the administrators. You did a wonderful job tonight. And I just, in closing, I want to give a brief update of Portrait of a Graduate, because, many times school districts take on a project like this, Portrait of a Graduate. A lot of effort is put into the project, and then other things happen, and the project just kind of hangs out there or goes away. I think tonight you saw how Portrait of a Graduate in Bloomfield is living in all of our schools. You heard, starting in Wintonbury, Wintonbury's focus on communication. If you look at the bottom of this slide, are 4 areas of competencies that we want to see in our children that we received from the community, from parents, from our staff, from our students. They want our students to be communicators, critical thinkers, problem solvers, and being adaptable. We started off with Wintonbury saying, yeah, we have a focus on communication with our little 4-year-olds. We moved into Laurel in the math area. Our 2nd and 3rd graders are problem solvers. Our 1st and 2nd graders are solving problems. We moved into Metacomet, critical thinkers. Mr. Guzzo talked about our new reading program and how it's really developing those critical thinking skills. We moved from Metacomet to CASE. Mrs. Williams talked about our students responding to challenges. They're becoming very adaptable in the world. In CAMS and GEMS, again, we talked about how our students through the math programs are becoming true problem solvers. And finally, in BHS, again, being problem solvers. And Mr. Maletti went on to talk about the community involvement and getting our kids real job opportunities to go out into the community and really figure out what their career path may be. So you saw that every single one of our schools is embedding the competencies that we came up with as Portrait of a Graduate. And also, I have to again thank our administrators, because all of them are leading one of these priority area teams. Not like they don't have enough on their plates, but they are heading these teams, and we're holding committee meetings in the various priority areas. You can see they're listed here. The teams are working on putting together their action plans, and these plans will be shared at a future Board of Education meeting. Our goal is to continue the Portrait of a Graduate work for years to come to assure all of our graduates will be successful in whatever pathway they choose. And that concludes our report tonight.
Thank you, Ms. Cullinan, and to all of our principals. Before I open up questions coming from the board, let me just state that before this meeting is over, every board member will receive a copy of the PowerPoint presentation that was just conducted with the principals. Questions? Questions?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I just want to make a comment. Ms.
Go ahead,
Cullinan,
Mr.
I
Wright.
like your comment, but I like your comment about a lot of times we start programs and then they go to the wayside, but you certainly put it together how the approach to the graduate is impacting every school. So I want to thank you for that comment.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ike. Any other questions or comments?
Yes, I have my hands raised, Chair.
Okay, I'm sorry. Please go ahead. Please proceed, Ms. Vogelasagai.
Thank you for that, administrators. That was useful to hear, but it would be even more useful if the next time such a presentation is done, you add some numbers, some figures. I'd like to hear the numbers of our students who are being exposed to this kind of curricula. And also, please make the connection with the state standards. How are we connecting to these state standards that have been set and established, so that there's something to judge all of this commentary against, as it were, because it comes across as terribly impressive. And if in fact our schools were producing the students in the way that you're suggesting, I guess we need to wait for some years to get the real results. Then I would suspect that we would have a number of people breaking down the doors to come into Bloomfield, because our education system would have turned around at such a wonderfully rapid rate. And I would love to see that. So the next time that you do such a presentation, I will be interested to hear not just raw numbers or just percentages, but also raw numbers in terms of how many students are actually being impacted by this level of work and connected to the state standards, please. But in the meantime, I thank you very much. That was useful to hear.
Thank you. Other comments? Mr. Wilkerson.
So I guess my question, and first I want to thank you. I think the presentation was excellent. I do want to know, how are we measuring success with Portrait of a Graduate? Is that something you could speak to, Ms. Cullinan?
I'm sorry, Mr. Wilkerson, I couldn't hear the beginning of it. Are we making?
How are we measuring success? What is our measuring stick?
Okay, that's basically what we're writing into our action plan for each of those committees. Early childhood, family connection. We will be having a separate action plan with strategies that will be reviewed and checked to see if we are making progress. Like how many of our students are involved in early childhood. We had an early childhood meeting today. And we looked at the percentage of kids that get an early childhood experience in Bloomfield and how we can help, to present more opportunities for our families. So each of those different committees which make up Portrait of a Graduate, like civic responsibility and our talented and gifted and data, will all have an action plan and ways that we can judge whether we are impacting our students or not. And that will be presented to the Board of Ed. We hope to do that in March.
Thank you.
Other comments, questions?
I have my hands raised again.
Okay,
Chair.
yes, ma'am. Please proceed.
To Principal Ellis, it did not go unnoticed, you're saying that you were approached by a set of students in your school to talk about discipline. I think that is phenomenal. So I will be interested going forward to hear how you address that, and also what impact it's having, given that the students themselves expressed an interest in seeing a more well-disciplined school environment.
And Dr. Ellis and Mr. Bernabe are both co-chairs of the Civic Responsibility. So when Dr. Ellis and I were speaking about, his example tonight that he was going to share, we were both thrilled that it's manifesting, civic responsibility is manifesting in our students, and they brought, to him that they wanted to form a student council and et cetera. So we are really happy with that.
To move in the right direction.
There you go. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Other comments? Other comments? Other comments? Okay, hearing none. Again, my gratitude to all the principals for an outstanding presentation, and board members, look to your email. You'll get a copy of this presentation before this meeting is up. Okay. Approval of the BEA contract beginning July 1st. Mr. Robinson?
Thank you. It's take a second. It's really apropos that I follow the administrators on their presentations because really without great teachers, we can't have great students. So good evening. The district has completed our negotiations with the Bloomfield Education Association, and I would like to present the 2022 to 2025 mediated contract agreement for your approval. As you may recall from prior meetings, filling teacher positions continues to be a challenge in Connecticut and nationally. The teacher shortage makes it more difficult to compete for and retain talented teachers. In fact, I read this statistic today from the American Association of School Personnel. 2/3 of districts nationally are experiencing teacher shortages. The quality of our teaching staff is central to our achieving our goals for educational excellence, and this agreement reflects this priority. The contract negotiations address the financial reasons why some teachers leave the districts. Additionally, we agreed to a regular increase in premium cost sharing, as well as the teachers moving to a lower cost health plan. And just to, I do want to address something I just mentioned it because it's really important to us. And it has come up in the financial report and other areas. Teacher retention is really important. And it is not just about hiring high quality teachers, but and keeping them here, but they need to have relationships with the students. And if our teachers are moving on to other districts or moving education out of education in general to the private sector or other higher paying jobs, then our students are not benefiting from that experience. So that was really one of the things we were sort of looking at as we focused in on this contract. And let me go into some of the details for you. And every year, we've agreed to a step movement for teachers who are not at the top step, and then a 2% wage increase for teachers who are at the top step. The total cost for year one is 3.91%. The total cost for year two is 3.93%, and year three is 3.78%. And then for our hourly rates, you'll see in the contract, which I think you already have, in our stipends, there's a 2% increase to those. In terms of benefits, health and dental premium cost share will increase 15% in year one, 16 in year two, and to 17% in 24 to 25. And then the BEA members are moving their health and dental coverage to what's called the SPP2, which is the State Partnership Medical Plan. And the state plan is one that, well, certainly all the state employees are on, and a lot of towns are on as well. It's a larger plan. It has, fewer fluctuations in the cost that we can identify. And our plan, our internal consultant, Brown & Brown, has suggested that we're going to save about $169,000 a year with the teachers moving to that plan. And that's the equivalent of about 0.92% in the contract cost. And then some other significant things. We had an incentive plan built into the contract. We found that to be really hard to manage because it was, especially during COVID or the past several years, because of standardized testing. But we felt it'd be better to take at least some portion of that funds and put it into actual wages rather than the incentive plan, was a little bit hard to manage. And then I also provided some comparisons for you. In the Hartford County, the average settlement is 11.2%. In the state, it's 11.62. So we're sort of we're right in the ballpark with that.
That conclude, Mr.
That
Robinson?
concludes, sir.
Mr. Fryman,
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Motion to approve the tentative agreement between the Bloomfield Board of Education and the Bloomfield Educators Association for the period July 1st, 2022 through June 30th, 2025.
Second,
it's been properly moved and seconded to approve the BEA contract for the next 3 years. Actually, been July 1st, 2022 to June 30th, 2025. Questions? Mr. Ike?
Mr. Chairman, I just have a question. Will we be able to get the percentage breakdowns? I'm looking at the salary scale for the BAs. How many of our staff have BAs? How many have masters? How many have the 6-year? And how many have the doctorate? Thank you.
I do have that information and I can provide it to you.
Okay. Other questions? Other questions? Ms. Eastman?
Thank you. I think I missed it when you talked about the savings of 169,000. Was that annually, you said, or over the course of the contract?
That's annually.
Okay, thank you.
And again, that's just an estimate because, you know, we're self-insured. We get some few big claims in there and it could go up. And in a larger plan, you're going to have fewer fluctuations like that because there's just so many more members affecting the plan.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yes, Mr. Wilkerson.
Mr. Robinson, with new staff coming into the district or being hired, and as it relates to this new contract, where would they fall in terms of salary, being that we're trying to be competitive with new salary rates, as well as being competitive with other districts in the area?
Right. So that's a really good question. If you, and I don't have the contract in front of me, but if you look about towards the end of it, you're going to see all the salary grids for every year. And what those grids do is show you how you can compare. So if you come in with a certain degree, so you have certain lanes, right? There's 3 different lanes, and then the years of experience. And you can essentially look, if you have, 6 years of experience with a master's degree, you'll be able to see what the salary is. And this is really important because one of the reasons we're doing step increases, and I just give a little bit of history, and for the veteran members, I think that the BEA, who's on this meeting, by the way, and we sat down and looked at all the step increases over the years. And what happens is, without step increases, we create this very large gap. So and this is really what hurts retention. So we can have a teacher, for example, who may have 10 years of experience over the past decade, but is only on a step that reflects, 4 years of experience. And so they're almost better off leaving the district and coming back. So what's happening is they're going somewhere else. And that's what we're trying to fix. And because we negotiate contracts every 3 years, we have to look at this and say, what is this going to look like 3 years from now? And we really think that in terms of keeping great teachers in Bloomfield, having the step increases without having a large general wage increase, which is something we've done in the past, having those step increases will keep teachers here.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yes, Ms. Eastman.
The teachers that we're talking about, are we talking strictly classroom teachers, or are there other, I don't know, classifications of people who work in the school system that would fall under X amount of years of experience?
Yes.
How does that work?
So we are talking primarily classroom teachers, but it's anybody who's in the Education Association. So that would be, for example, counselors would be, guidance counselors would be in there. And then there are some certified staff who are non-instructional, different types of coaches, language, speech, and hearing, things like that. But they're all sort of in the certified, meaning certified, state certified educators.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Other questions? Other questions? One last time, any other questions? Hearing none, seeing none. All those in favor of approval of the BEA contract for the next 3 years, please signify by saying aye.
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 Oppose? Abstentions? It is unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you.
This is my custom CABE updates. I have two basic updates. One, Mr. Wilkinson and I both attended the new board member workshop that was put on by CABE on December 8th. It was an all-day workshop with some very valuable information. And secondly, our new president of CABE, Elizabeth Brown, has appointed Joseph Wilkerson to serve as an associate director of the board. So he is now an associate board of directors with the CABE organization. So congratulations, Joe. We're proud of all of our accomplishments with CABE. Board comments, Ms. Eastman?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just want to thank everyone for their presentations this evening. Great information as always. Also, especially the students, like we said earlier, it's really difficult to come and speak in front of people you know and people you don't know. So thank you for your presentation and your time. I know you all have a full workload as well. Just a general thank you to all of the teachers and staff for getting us through this pandemic. We know about the shortages. We understand everything that's going on. And I'm just so grateful that we haven't had to cancel school because of it. So just thank you for your extra dedication and hard work. It is much appreciated. That's all I have for tonight. Have a good evening, everyone. Please stay safe and be well.
Thank you. Mr. Ike?
Yes, Mr. Chairman and board members, congratulations, Mr. Wilkerson. Also, I got to applaud the district. Their presentation was good, and I agree with Ms. Posey. Sorry, I mispronounced that we need to see the metrics. The presentation was highly impressive, but of course we need to see the metrics. How many of our students are actually exceeding with these new programs, this program? And lastly, I was on I don't know whether it was school in session between the 26th and the 2nd of January, because I was on a cruise ship, and Dr. Thompson, I was getting emails from you all day. Were you working? Or I didn't know whether school was in session or wasn't in session. But you did an outstanding job keeping us abreast during, if that were in fact school was, even doing when school is in session, but if school wasn't in session, it was like you were in the office every day. So I want to applaud your leadership as a beacon for the staff during these trying times of pandemic. Thank you, and welcome to the start of the second semester. Have a good second semester.
Thank you.
Did Mr. Moore ever join us? Mr. Moore? Okay. Ms. Bogle-Assegai?
Yes, Chair. I'd really just like to say thank you very, very much to Superintendent and to the administrators and staff for just kind of plowing through with this pandemic. You all are doing an amazing job. And Krista, thank you very much for this constant update. I'm really just rooting for all of us, quite frankly, going forward. And I am sure you will all continue to do an excellent job. And thank you, Wendy, as we all do. And our students from GEMS, I think our students get a wonderful experience by simply coming and presenting before the board. So I would like to see more students have the rotation and have them come and do the presentation. It's a good experience. Again, thank you very much to Superintendent Thompson and all of the administrators. You're all doing a stellar job to keep the schools open. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Wilkerson?
Thank you, Mr. Harris. I must second that, Ms. Assegai. I think that everyone's doing a wonderful job. Wonderful job to you, Dr. Thompson, and your leadership throughout this pandemic. I want to also, just thank all the principals for giving their updates. I have to give it to Principal Stryker over at Wittenberry. I had two children over there. My son's over there now, and he's mastered many of those skills that you guys have been working on with him, especially with the communication. So I can speak directly to that. I also must say that, to William Onick and to Ariana, I think that you guys have done an awesome job with your presentation. Great job for that. And then also, specifically speaking to, Ms. Banish and, your leadership with regard to this pandemic. I think that you're also doing a wonderful job. I thank you for giving those numbers, the presentation. And again, everyone's doing a great job. Let's hold it down. Let's continue to keep this together, and we'll get through this together. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Friedman? You're muted, Mr. Friedman.
When it gets to this point where the vice chair and the chair get to say our comments, we've all said almost everything that we already think. But just to continue, I want to thank all our principals for coming tonight and providing your performance update. Thank you very much. I'm looking forward to actually, seeing the presentation when we see it tonight. Ms. Shepherd-Banish, thank you. You are absolutely wonderful and appreciate all the updates. It's a very difficult time through COVID, and thank you for keeping us abreast of what's happening in the schools. I also want to make state that I'm very pleased to see that we're sending out a lot of notices regarding to our parents and staff and families that there are COVID clinics available for people to take advantage of those. Bloomfield residents, please utilize our clinics and make sure that your family is safe from this pandemic. Last, two more things. Mr. Wilkerson, see a smile on your face. Congratulations on your paid presentation. Position, thank you. I think your things are very rewarding. And lastly is, once again, a belated Happy New Year to everyone on the staff, members of our board, Mr. Harris. Hopefully we'll have things better for the current year than we've had in the past. So it ends my comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Friedman. I also want to applaud again our William and Ariana outstanding presentation this evening. And we really appreciated everything that you said and took note of everything that's going on at GEMS. You know, I think I alerted the board tomorrow, January 12th. The CEA, which is the parent group of our local BEA, our Teachers Association, and they are having a January 12th, encouraging staff throughout the state to wear black. And just to let folks know that they are not pleased with the condition of their buildings and that they're not safe as they should be. And, you know, just conditions all related to COVID. But following that declaration by the CEA, we were very pleased, as I know the superintendent was very pleased, and she is on the call right now. The president of the BEA, Sue Sundberg, and a teacher at Carmen A. Race. I can't think of her name right now. Okay, it'll come to me. Both issued statements attesting to what wonderful care we are taking with our buildings. That whatever was described by the CEA and other districts do not apply to Bloomfield. Our buildings are clean, they are safe, and we are doing everything humanly possible to keep our schools prepared for our children. And that all of that just leads me to give kudos to not only the maintenance staff, but all the teachers, guidance counselors, administrators, everybody associated with the care of our children, because that's the most important item that we have to deal with on a daily basis. I'm so proud and pleased to be a member of this Board of Education and seeing what I see every day. Dr. Thompson and I sometimes talk 2, 3, 4 times a day, and he updates me on the issues with COVID or how many have been tested positive with COVID. And sometimes that news gets depressing. But, you know, staff have been there, they continue to be there. And I just can't say enough thank yous to our staff. And that includes the staff and administration building. And in answer to you, Mr. Ike, who was on that beautiful cruise, December 26th to January 2nd, I wondered the same thing. Just before we broke for the holidays, I said to Dr. Thompson, I'm expecting you to take some time. He hasn't taken any time off, very little time. We probably owe him a ton of vacation time. But he didn't take much off during the summer, and he just continues to be on the job day in and day out. I said, during this Christmas break, I need you to take some time away. I'm going to call your people and let them know I don't want to see you in the building. And he laughed and he said, no, I'm going to take some time. Well, as you know, Omicron got crazy, and especially crazy right after Christmas. And January 1st, New Year's Day, I got a call from Dr. Thompson to give me an update on positivity rates And I said, where are you? He said, I'm in the office. And I remember January 1st, not only is it New Year's Day, it's a Saturday. And Dr. Thompson was on the job. And I didn't bother to call him because I was really going to get mad on the second Sunday, because I figured he was probably in the office that day too. So a big thanks to Dr. Thompson, because he is the captain that's steering this ship. And we just need to, anytime we see him, say thank you. Thank you, Dr. T. At this time, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
It's been properly moved and second. We are adjourned. Good night, all.
Good night, all.
February 8th is our next meeting, February 8th.